Just about 1 year ago, Kenneth Okonkwo was on media houses around the country talking about Peter Obi's 7-point agenda. But now, things are falling apart and the center cannot hold with the Labour Party as he seems to have officially parted ways. This is one of the conversations we'll be having this morning. Good morning, I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogbon. We're also going to be taking a look at the current petrol crisis in Lagos and in different parts of the country. Of course, as Nigerians once again have to queue for hours to buy something as simple as petrol. These and many other conversations we're going to be having this morning as we also x-ray the conversations surrounding the proposed protest on the 1st of August, just about 2 days from now, 2024. We also, of course, will bring you breakfast headlines in a bit. But before that, let's quickly share our views on some of the things that have happened over the weekend. I think in Ogun State, Governor Jacob Abiodun, while addressing Babcock University, spoke to Nigerian students. I was asking that they give the president more time, be patient with the president. Also spoke about how protests always eventually lead to anarchy, and was asking why Nigerians would want to destroy their country. When they could resolve these things peacefully or just give the president more time. And eventually, of course, he got a response from one of the graduates. So let's quickly share that with you, and then we'll get into a quick conversation, on that before breakfast headlines.
I seize this opportunity to appeal to our youth to constructively engage with government to finding lasting solutions to Nigeria's problems, rather than engaging in protests that may start peacefully but usually get hijacked and may lead to anarchy. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had very little choices when he assumed office. He had to take the bull by the horn. He had to remove the subsidy. He had to float the naira. Otherwise, it would have been worse.
I am very happy that 2 of our governors are here. This country is always shouting the name of the president when they are in need. Nobody is talking of our governors. We must please query our governors, query our chairmen of councils. We must ask questions. We voted for them. They are responsible to us. And please, don't stand on the sideline. Be a true Nigerian. When you elected somebody to serve you, that person is not your leader. That person is supposed to be your servant.
And I think he put it very, very rightly there. When a person is elected to serve you, that person is not, your leader. The person is your servant. And it's a mentality that I believe that both Nigerian leaders and Nigerian citizens, the electorate generally, need to also adopt and realize that, every single person who has, campaigned, contested for office in every single position, from the presidency to governors in the National Assembly, every single one of them shouldn't get into that place and feel like they are leaders and they are untouchable, they are beyond question, they are beyond scrutiny. They are servants, and you cannot fight that hard to become a servant of the people and then fail to respond to the people when they ask questions.
Absolutely.
Or prevent the people from asking you questions. And that's in every way, shape, or form, whether it's through a peaceful protest, whether it's through court processes, whether it's just simply through media questioning. One of the things I will be talking about today is the part where President Bola Tinubu seems to be adopting the same policies with the former President Muhammadu Buhari, which is not having conversations with the media.
So that's one. And I do think, there's nothing else to add, that it's important that we ask our governors questions, we ask our local government chairmen questions. The same Governor Jacob Abiodun is interesting, was in the news very recently for being called out for roads that were not done in Ogun State. There were videos and there were photos, and they had then made it look like it was some media war between the governor and Hawa, and it was quite an interesting watch. But yes, the governors, the president, they're not there just as our leaders. Yeah. More importantly, they're there to serve us.
I would also mention, I know we're running out, but I want to once again mention the whole idea of let's give Mr. President time. He's only been there for 1 year. Former President Goodluck Jonathan was sworn in, I think, on the 19th, or was declared president on 19th of April in 2011. The Occupy Nigeria protest started on the 2nd of January in 2012. That's less than a year after he was declared president. So what do they mean when they say that he's only been president for 1 year?
And how much time is enough time for us to actually see the change? That if we do a comparative analysis between the quality of life Nigerians are living now and the one they inherited, it's in shambles. You know, funny thing, many people said they never believed that they would see the day where they would say they actually miss President Muhammadu Buhari, because it does feel like the quality of life we lived then was much better than what Nigerians have to deal with.
There were numerous people who made the same statements in the former administration: give President Buhari time, give him more time.
Yes.
So how much time, really?
How much time
really
is
enough?
Anyway, let's share with you the top stories that we're looking at this morning. Nigerians and federal government disagree over hashtag End Bad Governance protest. Some in support, some against it. Motorist commuters groan as fuel scarcity returns to major cities around the country, and it's not been a very convenient thing for Nigerians. Kenneth Okonkwo dumps Labour Party, knocks Peter Obi for his leadership style, and the security beefs up following recent Boko Haram attack in Borno State. We will also be reviewing the newspaper front pages with our analysts and with you when we open the phone lines. But first, breakfast headlines.
Welcome to Breakfast Headlines. Let's tell you this morning, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and oil marketers have blamed the ongoing fuel scarcity in Lagos and the Federal Capital Territory on disruptions in supply at key depots. Reports indicate that some oil marketers and transporters have reduced the number of trucks dispatched to load petrol, anticipating a planned statewide hunger protest. Some PMS dealers have instructed their drivers to park their trucks, particularly those transporting fuel from coastal depots to the south, to the hinterlands in the north. And the Amnesty International has warned against threatening protesters, saying doing so would undermine the legacy of President Bola Tinubu. Since the End Bad Governance in Nigeria started gaining traction on social media, many top government officials have advised against the demonstrations, arguing that the protest could be hijacked by hoodlums. They urge citizens to have faith in the current administration, noting that the president is committed to addressing the concerns and the welfare of Nigerians. Now, ahead of the planned End Bad Governance nationwide protest in August, human rights lawyer Ebun-Olu Adegboruwa has asked the Nigerian Communications Commission to probe telecommunication operators' alleged disconnection of subscribers. In a statement on Sunday, the senior advocate of Nigeria warned that telcos should not attempt to sabotage the forthcoming protests against economic hardship in Nigeria by restricting internet access among displeased citizens. The senior lawyer said the contract between telecom companies and their subscribers remains sacrosanct and should not be tampered with arbitrarily. The Nigerian police force on Sunday defended its request for the names and other details of intending participants of the forthcoming August nationwide End Bad Governance protest. Force spokesman Ebun-Olu Adegboruwa said having such details is standard procedure to ensure the safety of all participants and prevent all or any unlawful activities. And now to Southern Africa, South African former President Jacob Zuma has officially been expelled from the ANC. He was found guilty by the organization of prejudicing its integrity by forming the MK Party, a rival of the ANC. Zuma's hearing was held last week. The party said he could appeal its ruling within 21 days. Also in the news, at least 19 people have drowned when their boats sank in a river in Ethiopia's northern Amhara region. The region's official media said on Sunday. The Amhara Media Corporation added that 7 people, including a child, were saved in difficult circumstances. The boat was taking passengers across the Tekizi River, which runs along Ethiopia's border with Eritrea, before it crosses into Sudan, at a point where the 3 countries meet. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. And let's go back to Breakfast Central and continue with our top stories.
We begin our conversations this morning in Borno State, where heavy security measures have been placed along Maiduguri-Auno Jakana Road. In the wake of a devastating attack by suspected Boko Haram terrorists on the Jakana Police Station in Kandugo local government area of Borno State, we see the security forces have been significantly ramped up their presence along the Maiduguri-Auno Jakana Road. The assault, which resulted in the tragic deaths of 2 individuals, has prompted a thorough examination and reinforcement of security protocols in the region. News Central's Umaru Kirawa brings us an update from Jakana.
A 45-kilometer drive from Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, to Jakana in Konduga local government area. Around 2 p.m. on Sunday, armed militants suspected to be Boko Haram raided the Jakana Police Station. The assault claimed the lives of a police officer and a civilian.
The terrorists destroyed these 2 patrol vehicles, setting them ablaze. They also made off with motorcycle, among other equipment, in the police station in Jakana. This incident underscores the ongoing security challenges in Borno State, which calls for more effort in terms of tackling the insurgents and, of course, taking proactive measures to forestall attacks by insurgents.
The Jakana community go about their normal day-to-day activities, as some of the people are even unaware of the attack.
And they be sort of had when I call Bundu, I'm a hard about Tadin Day about. I'm a back mother, Alhamdulillah. Lemmer Malam Shebe, I full attire the game, I'm our current come in about. To the Levi to Andanado, Nyama Dona Kumbuede, Bella Zoma Zokane, Aviana, Zokane, she Burtans, Basmaradin.
Alhamdulillah, Kamaro, Kazi Bika Berabra, Sana, Aima Kamaro and Levana Zitinaba, Amabia Nasha Adama, Neleva Bandibia Adamabia.
Police have since commenced the investigation, as measures are said to have been taken to prevent further attacks. Intensified routine vehicle and passenger inspections are now ongoing to ensure the safety of commuters and residents in the affected areas. In Jakana for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Thank you, Umaru Kirawa, for that report. We do hope that some sense of normalcy is returned to the region. It's hard enough that right now we have to deal with the exorbitant cost of living, of food prices, of, a number of the challenges that we're dealing with as a country, and then to add insecurity to that, which has already been a challenge. It's not the best of times, but our hearts, our thoughts, and our prayers are with the people. But more importantly, the government needs to get to work. Now we'll move away from that to talk about another story. The Nigerian police has set a strict 4 p.m. curfew for the upcoming nationwide protests. So protesters should endeavor to get their message across and head home before the clock strikes 4. In a statement released last Friday, Inspector General of Police Olukayode Egbetekun outlined guidelines for the planned protests. In addition to the 4 p.m. curfew is a request for organizers to provide details of their proposed route, the assembly point, the duration, the leaders' names and contacts.
Now, while the request has been met with criticism, the police maintain that these measures are necessary to ensure public order and safety, citing its constitutional responsibility to maintain peace and prevent unlawful activities. The police have urged protest organizers to work together with the police to ensure peaceful and safe protests.
Now we'll go into the meat of this conversation shortly, but let's go on a quick break, and when we come back, our guests will be joining us to explore the conversation further. Welcome back. Now, still speaking about the plans for the End Bad Governance protest, there have been guidelines set by the IG of Police, Kayode Egbetekun. Now, let's take a look at this video.
We acknowledge the constitutional right of Nigerian citizens to peaceful assembly and protest. However, in the interest of public safety and order, we urge all groups planning to protest to provide necessary details to the Commissioner of Police in the state where protest is intended to take place. To facilitate a successful and incident-free protest, they should please provide the following information. 1. Proposed protest routes and assembly points. 2. Expected duration of the protest. 3. names and contact details of protest leaders and organizers. 4, measures to prevent hijacking by criminal elements, including key identifiers for possible isolation of potential troublemakers.
A lot has been said for and against the protests, including the fact that some would say, I believe the IGP had also said that there were reports that foreign mercenaries have in some way planned to hijack the protest. But we'll get into the details proper shortly. We're joined this morning by legal practitioner and former Minister of Communication, Adebayo Shitu. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning to you. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
We'll be joined much later by another legal practitioner. But starting off with you, sir, I mean, this is drama that Nigerians do not maybe need at this time, but it's conversation that is important to have. The police have come out to give guidelines on how this protest should be carried out. They have first said that they acknowledge that Nigerians have a right to protest. Given these guidelines that may in some way limit the effect of the protest, is that not taking away from this right?
Well, there's no law without exceptions. For instance, if you have a right to walk, you don't have a right to push me off the road. We all have our rights, and there are limitations to law. Particularly in the case of Nigeria, where we are in a democracy. Democracy has its qualifications, it has its limits. The fact that we are in a democracy also means that there must be rules to guide the practice of democracy. For instance, you can't say because we're in a democracy, the INEC should obey your own limited perspectives of how elections should hold. So I want to particularly commend the Inspector General of Police. What he has done is really novel. We have had protests in the past where the police would start by being combative and would, just assume that everybody will be riotous. In this case, they are saying, because we have had an NSAS protest in the past in Nigeria, which became riotous, which became destructive, and particularly it was destructive against public property, not even against government property as such. We saw what happened in Lagos, where private businesses were destroyed, private, houses were destroyed. Again, the judiciary was invaded in Lagos here. The house or the palace of the Oba of Lagos was invaded. I mean, how do you compare or, look at the fact that you are protesting against the police, essentially? The headquarters of the Nigerian police is not in Lagos. It is in Abuja. You didn't go to protest against the police establishment, from its headquarters. What you decide to do was to go to the house or the palace of the Oba of Lagos to destroy the place. You went to, the judiciary courts were destroyed, in Abuja here, private, businesses, including, restaurants and all of that were destroyed. So there must be limitations, there must be rules to guide whatever you want to do. I mean, we are all Nigerians, and the fact that some people decide to protest, we cannot prevent them from protesting, in the real sense. But again, they must not come and invade my private property, for instance. They must not also insist that my business should not open. I mean, these are very important things.
But do you support the idea of a protest? And
you see, you have to look at it. I mean, talking, strictly and objectively, when you start by saying that you want to protest against, you want to end bad governance, that mischievously implies that you want to remove the government, which in itself is a treasonable act.
No, but it doesn't. Ending bad governance doesn't mean
what is the perspective of bad governance?
The idea,
that they are protesting against.
So it depends on who. Like they say, if the shoe fits, you wear it. So if a person feels that they embody bad governance in Nigeria, that's the only way that it should be triggered. But if the idea is, I want to end bad governance, I want to end impunity.
How do you end it? You have to.
It doesn't necessarily mean removing a person.
No,
from
what does
office.
it mean? What does it mean?
It means reminding the person that they must govern properly.
That is not a reminder.
No, that's the way that it could be seen.
No. I mean, your restrictive interpretation must not be imposed on all Nigerians.
I fail to understand the direct correlation between ending bad governance.
No, I mean, what is your understanding? What is in the perspective
ending bad governance in
Nigeria?
Nigeria? Right. That's what it means. Simply.
What does it mean?
Okay, so maybe to give some context to that, it might not necessarily mean removal of the government. It might be also a readjustment of the cabinet. There are people who would say that the current cabinet hasn't worked. We have the ministerial update.
It is, look, democracy, particularly what we are practicing in Nigeria, means we have a federal government which in itself is not about the executive alone. We have the executive, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary. If we assume that the judiciary is to really be the arbiter when there are conflicts, you look at what we have as a presidency, the cabinet, the federal cabinet. It is not the only arm of government, particularly with the presidency, which was elected. More importantly, we have our representatives in the National Assembly. There's no Nigerian who does not have a representative in the National Assembly, either as a senator or House of Rep. They are to be your mouthpiece. You cannot take laws into your own hands.
Yeah, but I don't know if we're understanding things the same way. There's a reason people get disgruntled. There's a reason that a people generally get upset at the way that the system is run. It's mostly because they've lost faith in those who are meant to represent.
So what do you do? What do you do in the circumstance of our democracy?
And that's why the Constitution allows for a peaceful protest.
But I mean, if you are protesting, insofar as you can guarantee necessary, restrictions, like it is often said that there's no free lunch even in Freetown. I mean, that's the treason.
Okay, let's talk about the governance or the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Would you say he has done a good job?
Should I also ask you, has he done a bad job?
No, sir, I'm the one who asked the question.
Look, this is an interactive session, and we are all Nigerians. Nobody is more Nigerian than the other. The only thing that Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done, which, a lot of people are complaining about, is the fact that he removed oil subsidy. But you have to understand the perspective. You have to understand where we are coming from.
So far you would say that he has done good and it's only removal of oil subsidy.
And if you for purpose of educating the people at home who are listening to us.
Okay.
The problem of the oil industry in Nigeria has been one problem which for 30 years running has been badly managed, even by previous governments. And what do I say? It is true that we produce crude oil in Nigeria. If you produce crude oil in Nigeria and you don't have capacity to refine it over the last 30 or so years, that implies that your crude oil which you produce may be at the cost of 100 naira a liter. That crude oil cannot be used in your cars and other places.
All right, hold our thoughts. I will come back to talk more. I'm still going to expand further. I mean, the last point is that so far, you think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done a good job, except that he removed fuel subsidy.
But
and we'll come back to
I think you should let me explain. Because
we want to bring in another guest, which is why...
there's no problem, but I would like to explain, what I started to explain.
Okay.
It is important for people out there. I mean, we are just 3 people here.
Has fuel subsidy been removed?
Would you allow me to try to explain?
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
We produce crude oil. We send it overseas because we don't have local refineries. The cost of taking this crude oil overseas, you pay in dollars. The cost of refining it overseas, you pay in dollars. The cost of bringing it back, from overseas where it is refined, again, you pay in dollars. Add all of the quantum of cost to the cost of producing the crude oil here. What that translates to is that at the end of the day, by the time you are refining overseas and coming, the cost has, become bloated, and there's nothing you can do about it.
All right.
Government has had to be borrowing money to subsidize, to make it easy for Nigerians.
Okay.
So if there had been bad governance, it is the fact that over the last 30 years or so, our governments have been unable to get our refineries working.
There are further questions we'd like to ask to investigate some of the things you've said, but we have a legal practitioner and human rights activist, Inibehe Effiong, joining us. Good morning, Inibehe Effiong. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. I think the best way or the first way to start would be to ask your thoughts regarding the guidelines surrounding the protests, and if you feel that these guidelines in a way take away or restrict the rights from the Nigerians, to protest. Does it limit their right?
I think it depends on how you look at it. First and foremost, the police and other law enforcement agencies have been issuing conflicting statements regarding the protests. The Inspector General of Police has not been consistent in his messaging. He has said at some point that people should not protest, basically dissuading people from protesting, but haven't realized that that approach was not going to work. He's now basically trying to lay landmines for the protesters by saying they should come forward to provide the names of the coordinators, or leaders in quotes, or the organizers, their addresses, the routes they are going to follow, and so on. I have a problem with the way they are going about it. I think these people are still living in denial. They are yet to come to terms with the seriousness of the matter. My suggestion is that rather than set conditions for which people can protest, the police should be capable of staying alive on the commencement of the protest to see the places that people are gathering and ensure that the protests across the country are entirely peaceful.
All right. And a follow-up to that would be your reaction to what the former minister here has said regarding President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's time in office. What are your thoughts on how he has fared so far?
Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, confirm you can hear me.
We can hear you, yes.
I'm saying that for the IG to say that for anyone to protest, the person has to come forward and provide certain information. That is not tenable, because that would mean laying a precedent. Or is it only applicable to this particular protest? Have they been setting these conditions for other protests? So let the IG focus on what is important. And if I could just quickly respond to what Mr. Adebayo Oshito has, some of the things I heard him say in the course of his interview. I have a problem with people who have been privileged to hold positions in this country, and I hope he is listening to me. I respect him as a senior lawyer in the country, but when he speaks in this manner, it reminds you of the predicament that young people have found themselves in this country. That we have, people occupying leadership positions, past or present, who are basically living in denial. For him to say that calling for an end to bad governance amount to treason, to say the least, is quite unfortunate. We must find a way in this country to caution ourselves as leaders and citizens from making comments that are inciting. Nigerians have the right to demand an end to bad governance. I am aware that Mr. Shitu had served under the Buhari regime, even though at some point he seems to have fallen out with the former president. But that was the regime that oversaw the slaughter of Nigerians, the murder of hundreds of Nigerians. People were killed, people were arrested and detained. The country was entirely insecure. But Buhari ruined and destroyed this country. So before they begin to dictate to us how to tell the government, the current government, to behave, they should start by apologizing for the role they played under the former government. And let us be serious about this matter. Anybody who says that Tinubu is doing well is not being sincere with himself, his or herself, because Tinubu himself knows that he has been nothing but a colossal failure. What is the legacy? This president has been in office for 1 year. 1 year is a good enough time. It is ample time for any president that has the interest of the country to set things in the right direction. Rather, what we have seen is a clear state capture, vicious state capture We are seeing the personalization of governance. We are seeing the undermining of democratic institutions. You have a situation where, for example, the president's son, or who in some sense appears to be the first son, as I choose to call it, basically takes precedence over ministers in public functions. You see him running all over the president everywhere. And the same thing for Lashade Tinubu, who is even coming out in public spaces to be making ridiculous statements. These people are basically telling you, of course he told us it was his turn. The point I am making, I need to emphasize why this is important. This is not a pedestrian matter. Why this is important is that if you mean well for the country, it is not just about your policies. Even your body language as president will convince people that you mean well. But we have a situation where inflation has become very abominable. This president, under him, the tariff of electricity has been increased. They claim they have removed subsidy, which is deceitful. Mr. Shito has also alluded to that deceit by saying that Tinubu has removed subsidy. But we know, all of you in this studio know that Tinubu has paid billions for subsidy. As I'm talking to you now, fuel queue in Lagos is terrible. People cannot find fuel to buy.
All right, Mr. Effiong.
The country, Nigerians are buying fuel up to 1,300 naira today.
Mr. Effiong,
and yet we cannot afford cost of basic commodities. And somebody will come to a studio and say the president is doing well.
All right, kindly hold on. Kindly hold on, so we could also have Mr. Shito respond. All right, I think you've made really strong points there, and he has a right to respond. So let's go back to the former minister. He, of course, has alluded to, his perspectives, and of course, starting from the former administration. Yeah. And also, I did ask a question before that you didn't answer, if the president has removed fuel subsidy. So you can respond to, Inibehe Effiong and also talk about fuel subsidy.
Talk is cheap. Nobody is more patriotic than me. I can assert that. All right. I've been in office.
Of staying alive on the commencement of the protest, to see the places that people are gathering and ensure that the protests across the country are entirely peaceful.
All right. And a follow-up to that would be your reaction to what the former minister here has said regarding President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's time in office. What are your thoughts on how he has fared so far?
Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Confirm you can hear me.
We can hear you, yes.
I'm saying that for the IG to say that for anyone to protest, the person has to come forward and provide certain information. That is not tenable, because that would mean laying a precedent. Or is it only applicable to this particular protest? Have they been setting these conditions for other protests? So let the IG focus on what is important. And if I could just quickly respond to what Mr. Adebayo Shito has, some of the things I heard him say in the course of his interview. I have a problem with people who have been privileged to hold positions in this country, and I hope he is listening to me. I respect him as a senior lawyer in the country, but when he speaks in this manner, it reminds you of the predicament that young people have found themselves in this country. That we have people occupying leadership positions, past or present, who are basically living in denial. For him to say that calling for an end to bad governance amounts to treason, to say the least, is quite unfortunate. We must find a way in this country to caution ourselves as leaders and citizens from making comments that are inciting. Nigerians have the right to demand an end to bad governance. I am aware that Mr. Shito had served under the Buhari regime, even though at some point he seems to have fallen out with the former president. But that was the regime that oversaw the slaughter of Nigerians, the murder of hundreds of Nigerians. People were killed, people were arrested and detained. The country was entirely insecure. But Buhari ruined and destroyed this country. So before they begin to dictate to us how to tell the government, the current government, to behave, they should start by apologizing for the role they played under the former government. And let us be serious about this matter. Anybody who says that Tinubu is doing well is not being sincere with himself, his or herself, because Tinubu himself knows that he has been nothing but a colossal failure. What is the legacy? This president has been in office for 1 year. 1 year is a good enough time. It is ample time for any president that has the interest of the country to set things in the right direction. Rather, what we have seen is a clear state capture, vicious state capture. We are seeing the personalization of governance. We are seeing the undermining of democratic institutions. You have a situation where, for example, the president's son, or who in some sense appears to be the first son, as I choose to call it, basically takes precedence over ministers in public functions. You see him running all over the president everywhere. And the same thing for Lashade Tinubu, who is even coming out in public spaces to be making ridiculous statements. These people are basically telling you, of course he told us it was his turn. The point I am making, I need to emphasize why this is important. This is not a pedestrian matter. Why this is important is that if you mean well for the country, it is not just about your policies. Even your body language as president will convince people that you mean well. But we have a situation where inflation has become very abominable. This president, under him, the tariff of electricity has been increased. They claim they have removed subsidy, which is deceitful. Mr. Shito has also alluded to that deceit by saying that Tinubu has removed subsidy. But we know, all of you in this studio know that Tinubu has paid billions for subsidy. As I'm talking to you now, fuel queue in Lagos is terrible. People cannot find fuel to buy.
All right, Mr. Effiong.
The country, Nigerians are buying fuel up to 1,300 naira today.
Mr. Effiong,
and yet we cannot afford cost of basic commodities. And somebody will come to a studio and say the president is doing well.
All right, kindly hold on. Kindly hold on, so we could also have Mr. Shito respond. All right, I think you've made really strong points there, and he has a right to respond. So let's go back to the former minister. He, of course, has alluded to, his perspectives, and of course, starting from the former administration. Yeah. And also, I did ask a question before that you didn't answer, if the president has removed fuel subsidy. So you can respond to, Inibehe Effiong and also talk about fuel subsidy.
Talk is cheap. Nobody is more patriotic than me. I can assert that. All right. I've been in office and I've distinguished myself. I mean, no matter what it was. Now, let me start with his critique of the Inspector General of Police, conditionalities. If somebody makes one statement today as required by the condition of that time, and tomorrow he makes an improvement, should he be criticized or should he be commended? And he's a lawyer. If you go to court, do you start quoting the 1993 Constitution or the 1963 Constitution? Is it what is relevant? What is relevant with regard to what the police have been doing is the most current of their directives, which is a novel idea and which must be commended by everybody. So I want to believe that what the Inspector General of Police has done is the current situation of the police with regard to the protest which, is being planned. All right. With regard to the last, he tried to condemn the past administration. I don't have any apology of my, perspective of my contribution. I was a minister between 2015 and 2019. I don't know what I have done wrong, if he has any ideas. But I distinguished myself and I thank God that I had contributed. I don't have any apology of, about my role. With regard to the alleged killings, he said the Buhari administration, killed a lot of people. I mean, these are statements out of perspective. I don't know what evidence he has.
I mean, there was the at least for example, the
NSAS protest.
Not just the NSAS, the Zaria massacre in 2015.
What happened
the
in
Shiites, that according to official reports, up to 500 Nigerians were killed.
Let me tell you. What happened in Zaria, the so-called Shiite, protest or strike? Was it not more of, called suicide for people to go and confront the armed forces?
So 500 Nigerian
Is
citizens
it 500?
were,
more than 500. Journalists.
Yeah,
I'm supposed to give, verifiable evidence.
What is the official number?
What is am I in the police and are you in the police?
I'm quoting what the official figures were.
Which is the official figure? Which official gave you those figures?
What? So how many figures? If I'm wrong,
if there was an official figure and it was announced, I probably would know. But I don't know of these official figures.
So we don't know how many
Nigerians just announce the figures to incite public.
But isn't it worse? Isn't it worse that you agree that Nigerians died in Zaria that day, but we don't know how many?
We don't know how many people die because of wrong decisions by even those who
that's what I'm saying.
involved.
But isn't it worse?
If the armed forces and you go and confront them, or the police, you go and confront them for whatever reason. You go and say that there's a path they should not come, they should not.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, isn't it worse that we don't even know how many Nigerian lives were lost that day?
Otherwise, you wasn't the situation.
Let's take the conversation.
You are in a very critical position that whatever you say must be measured in such a way that it will not aggravate our position.
All right, sir. Let's take the conversation away from Zaria to the NSAS protest, because that was the yardstick by which this protest has been judged. Is there any justification for the killings that happened at the NSAS protest?
Which killings?
So are you saying categorically that nobody was killed at the NSAS protest?
Let me tell you. If in the name of any protest you go and start burning properties, private property, public property.
No, sir. It wasn't what we're talking about. It's what happened on the 20th of October.
Let us agree that all of us here do not have all the facts.
Sir, but we did see videos. There were videos.
I don't know what video you saw. I have not seen any such video.
We saw live stream videos, sir.
Let me tell you, tomorrow, and that is why some of us are warning against this planned protest. People will take laws into their hands and they expect to be treated, not as criminals.
So there were Nigerians, young people sitting on the ground, waving the Nigerian flag and singing. There were videos.
It is not enough to wave Nigerian flag. You must not be destructive in whatever you do. You're right. Has limitations.
So we're not talking about the hoodlums. We're talking about a particular incident.
Could you distinguish between hoodlums and non-hoodlums in a riotous situation?
And what do you think about the ECOWAS court having found Nigeria, the federal government, culpable on
that's not my business. I am not a lawyer to the government. I was not part of whatever ECOWAS did.
All right.
Let's bring in Inibehe.
As far as I'm concerned, I want verifiable evidence.
All right, Inibehe.
And we must be very careful when we talk in platforms like this, because the people are listening. And they will assume that whatever they hear from you are the gospel truth, and they may not be.
Okay, Inibehe, you were here as well. You were part of, everyone followed the October 2020 NSAS protest. And we call it October 2020 because that was the day that the incident occurred, the one that was taken to ECOWAS court. And, we sort of all saw the videos on social media that was being streamed live, even though at some point many Nigerians were gaslit to imagine that they did not see what they saw. But I want you to react to the explanation that the Honorable Minister has given regarding the NSAS protest, the Zaria incident, and, how Nigerians have handled that and how the federal government has handled that as well.
The government has been asking for the sponsors of this October 1st nationwide protest.
August 1st?
And August 1st, yes. Thank you. August 1st to 10th End Bad Governance protest. I think Mr. Adebayo Shitu, with due respect, is one of them. And he's sponsoring it by inciting Nigeria. When people make this sort of comments, with due respect to him, it's a way of provoking people, right? You don't deny things that are before you. Even the Kaduna panel set up by
your own position, which is anti-government.
Sir, I do think that he has a right. I think that he has a right.
Here and allow him to make.
No, sir, you would have a right to respond.
No.
But he didn't interrupt you, sir. He didn't interrupt you, sir. Please, can we give him a chance to speak, and then you can have a right to respond.
Even the Kaduna panel set up by Governor El-Rufai confirmed that at least over 300 people were murdered in Zaria and found the army and the military culpable. That is Kaduna State government to their other official reports. He said nobody was killed in NSAS. The Lagos State government, even Sanwo-Olu himself, confirmed that not less than 90 people were killed. They did not tie it to the toll gate, but across Lagos State during the NSAS protest. Regarding the toll gate, the Commissioner of Inquiry set up the Judicial Commission of Inquiry, which I had the privilege of appearing with, led by Mr. Pusika Esen, who led us. I was part of the team of lawyers who represented the victims who were attacked at the toll gate. Found that people were killed. So for anyone to still be living in denial that the NSAS protest was violent, it was crisis, that is just falsehood. The protest at the toll gate was entirely peaceful. People were singing, people were sitting on the floor, raising the national flag, the military, the armed forces was deployed to open fire on them. The videos are there. So let us stop this revisionist history.
If any such killings
right? The truth of the matter is that
people had the right to
Okay. Well, can you hold on?
Yesterday's radio Democrats have become today's dictators.
Let's await the outcome of the court
process. When they were in the opposition, Tinubu himself called for a revolution. Tinubu called for resignation of President Jonathan. Today, people make the same demands, and you say they are committing treason. And you are telling me I should not say that you are the one sponsoring the protest. You are sponsoring the protest by inciting Nigerians.
All right. Let's have the Honorable Minister respond. He did have some comments to make regarding what you have said.
Well, you see, as a lawyer, I know that when unjustifiable killings occur, people can go to court to ask for damages and all of that. I think we should await that rather than making statements, preempting such, legal processes. And I am warning us again, it is in the interest of Nigeria. If Nigeria burns, if what happened in Kenya is repeated in Nigeria, we will all suffer. Nigeria will be worse for it. So it is better to err on the path of caution. Let us preserve Nigeria. Let us preserve the peace of this country. I have said it earlier. We are all represented in the National Assembly. We cannot continue to take laws into our own hands and expect Nigeria to make progress. If there's no progress, if there's no peace, we would all continue to suffer. One thing I have seen about protests in many African countries, once people start protests, they insist that if you have a business, you must close your business on that day. If you have a shop, you must close your shop on that day. Right. There are millions of Nigerians who are daily earners. They cannot eat unless they go to the market on a daily basis.
Yeah, and those people in particular have had life completely worse for them in the last 1 year.
So the next thing is for you to recommend
I'm just saying that my point is, since we are concerned about them, we should also be concerned with the fact that life has become 100 or even more times worse.
I don't work for government.
Yeah, you didn't answer my question on petrol subsidy. You said earlier that
I don't work for government.
No, but you said that the president had ended petrol subsidy payments.
I mean, that was public knowledge. It was public knowledge.
But every other thing that I've claimed to be public knowledge, you have, disagreed with.
What I understand, I will comment on it. What I do not know, I will not.
So if you're not sure that the president has ended petrol subsidy, or you cannot comment on it, whether it has or not.
It was
okay. So you don't know whether the president has really ended petrol subsidy?
Did he not end it? Did he not announce when he was taking over government?
So are you confirming that he truly has ended subsidy?
If he did not end it, would the prices of petrol have gone, up as it has gone up?
All right.
But there's still obviously, even from the former governor of Kaduna State, many people still say that Mr. President is still paying subsidy.
I don't know. I mean, he should give us the fact. Whoever is alleging must give evidence of it to prove.
Okay. I just want us to circle back very quickly on the conversation we've had about the protests, the lives. We talked about the NSAS protest. We talked about the Zaria incident. You served as a former honorable minister of the Federal Capital, Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Communications, yes.
Yes, former honorable minister of communications. Yeah. Looking at the protests, what happened in Lagos, what happened in Zaria, what would you say? And looking at all that has happened, what is the value of the Nigerian life?
Nigerian life?
Yes.
I mean, you are asking me it's like you're asking me what is the value of my life or your life or his life?
Our lives.
We are trying to, sustain ourselves, and we are trying to benefit as much as we can from a stable, dynamic and progressive country. A country which is still in progress, because over the years, like I have said, we have not gotten the best. But I'm not hopeless I don't feel hopeless about our situation in Nigeria. And the benefit of having change of government every 4 years is to allow the people to decide whether the government has been serving their best interest. If they are convinced it has been serving their best interest, they vote for the government again, to retain it for another 4 years. If not, they vote the government out.
And in follow-up to what you had said earlier, that it's not necessarily about what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done, but some of the challenges that Nigeria has experienced in the past 30 years.
If you live in
I haven't asked the question,
Okay.
sir. I was going to say that if you say that it's also an offshoot of what has happened in the past 30 years, are you also saying that in some measure President Muhammadu Buhari is also to be blamed? And you served in,
Look,
in
I
his
don't
cabinet.
shy away from blaming the Buhari government because as a member of his campaign organization at that time, before he came in, I know we promised Nigerians that in the next 4 to 8 years, we were going to revive the refineries, the 4 government refineries, which had been, down for decades. Unfortunately, we never succeeded in doing that. I accept that, that it is a failing of our government.
Is there anything, we're going to bring in Ibehe, you're coming in a few seconds. I just want to ask, is there anything of the Buhari administration that you're proud of that your government achieved or your office?
I would say proudly
yes,
that in the area of infrastructure development, no previous government had beaten their record.
is that all? Is there anything else?
Is that not a sufficient thing to be proud of?
All right. Ibehe, please go ahead.
We had the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, for instance, which had been abandoned for more than 20 years before the Buhari administration came. They fixed it.
All right.
We have Lagos-Ibadan,
this is all still centered around infrastructure, but I want us, because there was nothing else to be mentioned besides the infrastructure development.
Well,
Ibehe, please go ahead. We'd like to, get your...
You are too much in a hurry to... maybe
can you hold on?
Restrict my comments on.
No.
If you had said more,
you know how many universities, for instance, were established during the Buhari administration. Before the Buhari administration came, no government.
Mr. Chito, I beg your pardon. Is there any metric?
Well, according
please go ahead.
According to a draft report presented by Mr. Wale Edo, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, sometime last month to the President, called Accelerated Stabilization and Advancement Plans. He revealed that the Tinubu administration in 2023, last year, spent about 3.6 trillion on fuel subsidy, and it is projected that by this year, they would have spent up to 5 trillion on fuel subsidy. We must find a way at this, as a country, to deal with government deception. When Tinubu announced the removal of subsidy on the 29th of May last year, there was no policy intelligence. He did not think about the immediate effect that was going to have on the country. So this argument that Tinubu has ended subsidy and we should all clap for him is just deception. Even the official pump price that they announced, I don't know how many fuel stations are buying at that price. Currently, as I said, in Lagos, we have fuel queues all over the place. Now, I think we have to also be honest with ourselves in this country. Nigerians have a constitutional right to protest. Mr. Shito, as I said, is a senior lawyer. I respect him as my very learned senior, but I have a problem with his approach to these issues. He must accept that we have a right to protest. And for him, is he expecting people to go and protest in Sambisa Forest? Are we supposed to protest in the bush? Protest has to take place in public places. That is what it has always been. That is what it is all over the world.
All right.
Even in the U.S., people protest at the White House.
Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your thoughts. But we do have to wrap up the conversations. We have to go on the break now. Thank you so much, Inibehe Effiong, for joining us. And we have with us the former Honorable Minister of Communication, Adebayo Shito. Thank you for your time with us today.
Thanks for stopping by.
We're on a quick break, and when we come back, more conversations to follow.
Welcome back. The Nigeria National Petroleum Company, NNPC Limited, has said that there was a glitch in its discharge operations. Olufemi Sheneye, NNPC's Chief Corporate Communications Officer, said in a statement on Saturday that the company was working with stakeholders to resolve these issues. However, the fuel scarcity has persisted. Now joining us is New Central's correspondent in Plateau State, Chizoba Anyonwe. Good morning, Chizoba.
Good morning. Welcome to Jos.
Great to have you join us. There's, of course, a lot of groaning in Lagos and the FCT. Is it the same thing in Plateau State this morning?
Yes, it is. Sadly, it is. In fact, for some weeks now, that has been the case, the situation here on the Plateau, where you get to see so many cars, drivers being on the queue for hours. And sadly, they end up not still buying the products. it is sad for some of them that I've spoken with earlier. They say that, I quote them, by the grace of God, we have the Naira and Kobo to buy this product. But unfortunately, we can't still have them end of quote. So this has been the sad situation. So many drivers on the platform.
Unfortunately, Chizoba, we can see a long queue behind you. I want to believe that you're standing near a fuel station. What is the current cost? Because we've been seeing several figures flying around, 850 in some quarters, maybe more, depending on where we're reaching from. But in Plateau State, where you are, how much does a liter go for?
Well, your guess would be as good as mine, actually, on this matter, because in so many different stations, there are so many different prices, just like you said. We have 817, 820, 830, and thereabouts. But that is why, well, the fuel station you're seeing right behind me is the NNPC mega station in Jos, and that is why you're seeing this long queue. And it stretches up to like 3 kilometers away from here. That is how bad it is. So I have 2 people that have been on the queue for hours, and I spoke with them, and they are willing to tell Nigerians and anybody that cares to know what the situation has been. So let's have them join us.
We'll come back to you, Chizoba, to have a conversation with him and to get his experience regarding the fuel scarcity. But just to mention that this is something that's happening in different parts of the country. Here in Lagos as well, it's not the best of experiences. On the way to work this morning, we could see queues.
It's because you're not wearing the
who have been there for days, who have been there for hours, you know, trying to get fuel, hours maybe. And at the end of the day, not only do they struggle to get the product, but they get it at an exorbitant price. We're going to reconnect with Chizoba now. Hopefully the sound issue has been sorted. And Chizoba, you're speaking with someone who's been... All right, we'll come back to Chizoba much later. But we'll have our newspaper review happening shortly to see what exactly the big stories are after this break. We're still looking at the fuel scarcity plaguing the nation, the discoordination when it comes to the price of fuel and also the non-availability of products as we've seen. We'll be joined this morning by public affairs analyst and politician Akim Bashiru. Good morning, sir. We hope that you had fuel on your way to get to the studio. Was it a bit of a hassle?
Yeah, naturally, yeah, a bit of hassle. In fact, we had to navigate through inner roads to get to this place, and that's because of the long queues that have dotted the landscape. So it's really tough out there.
It does seem that fuel scarcity has become the order of the day. We haven't, if you look at this year, we've had several repeated incidences of fuels. Even since last year, fuel scarcity feels like almost every month. Once there's been a bit of calm, Nigerians should be worried because there's going to be another fuel scarcity situation looming around the corner. It's hard enough that Nigerians have to pay really exorbitant prices. We don't even know if fuel subsidy is really, has really ended because of the several speculations we're hearing around the corners. And we hope that maybe you can give us further insight to that. But what does this say of, where we are as a nation? What does this say of the current administration and how it's handled our challenges, especially in the oil sector?
Anyway, it's quite unfortunate that we're experiencing all this kind of disruption. And like you've rightly said, it has been relief, at some point, and before you know it, another crisis comes up. But for me, I think it addresses the fundamental issues that have bedeviled the oil industry. I mean, it's regrettable that as a nation where we have crude, we still have to import fuel. And the moment you depend on importation, you're going to experience this. But I think since the current administration on board, for me, the disruption, though it was frequent, but I think for me, I would say it's more of sabotage. Take, for example, the crisis recently between Dangote. I mean, Nigeria has put in so much money to refine petroleum locally that every Nigerian would look up to serve as a savior for us. You can imagine the statements coming from NNPC, trying to demarket, this great effort of a Nigerian to make fuel available. So for me, I think it goes beyond the ordinary. I think there are, individuals or institutions or systems within the oil industry that is not happy, that does not want Nigeria to produce and refine oil.
That includes the NNPC.
Yes, yeah, that includes the NNPC, because even from the reaction of the managing director, and of course the gentleman who is in charge of is it upstream and downstream sector, the regulator, I mean, you will know that definitely there is more to it than
no, I mean, we have a minister of petroleum. You know, do you expect that, you know, he understands exactly what needs to be done?
The minister of petroleum, for me, is an administrator, and his experience as far as understanding the nitty-gritty of the oil industry, I can't really say, you understand, because it is an entrenched system that the current administration, for me, is trying to upset. And in a normal system, you have a lot of people who would definitely want to fight back. And if there's any entrenched cabal in any of our public institutions, I think NNPC is definitely a very strong one. So I would expect that the Minister of Petroleum Resources, in the last months that he's been there, by now should have a good understanding.
The president is the president himself is the substantive minister of petroleum. Heineken Lokuwiri is the Minister of State for Petroleum. Yeah. So whose responsibility would you say that this is?
The responsibility for me is a collective responsibility, and that's the truth. Even if the president is the minister, I'm sure he has two Minister of State, junior ministers. Yeah. You understand? And you also have the establishment. I mean, the professionals who are in the industry. So everybody, you know, should take part of the blame for whatever we are currently experiencing. But the fact really remains that even whatever experience the president might have had, you know, the nitty-gritty in that industry is such that, you know, an executive order or a fiat directive cannot, you know, solve that problem. It will require getting to the root. It's going to require a lot of things. Yeah. You will recall that Sanusi Lamido Sanusi has always been an advocate of auditing, investigating the petroleum industry. You know, he has always shouted about that.
Who else would we expect to have the powers and the political will and the wherewithal to carry out these investigations and to go to the nitty-gritty like you've described, if not Mr. President? He of course, is Minister for Petroleum. So who would we expect? And just bear in mind that we're talking about a country that continues to have its crude oil stolen in hundreds of thousands of barrels, according to the NSA and other high-ranking ministers who have stated that Nigeria's crude is still being stolen. 400, 700,000 barrels are being stolen every year. So we have that situation. We have a situation where the president, of course, you know, when he came into office, announced the end of, you know, a fuel subsidy. Today, there are claims that Nigeria is still paying subsidy, even paying more than we used to pay before the president announced the end of fuel subsidy. Does this all paint to you like there's somebody who's truly in charge and somebody who's truly in control of the petroleum industry in Nigeria?
Yeah, let me say that first and foremost, the bulk stops on Mr. President's table. That's a fact in every situation in the country. But the fact also remains there are also individuals, you know, who are involved. Mr. President can order investigation. He won't carry it out himself. Okay. And ordering investigation does not mean that you get, I mean, the investigation, when it's even done, is going to be done within one day. It's a system that has been there over the years and will require some time. I know that even the National Assembly has also come to say that they're going to investigate it. And if the Right Honorable Speaker of the House could lead a delegation to Dangote, you know, refinery, it tells you the high level of interest that the current government has in it. So investigation will have to be ordered by Mr. President. Of course, it's going to take some time. But the fact remains now that it can no longer be, it can no longer be the same as far as this industry is concerned. Dangote is not happy that he's been demarketed, he's been discouraged. You know, Nigerians are not happy. And I think at this point, both the media and the general public will have a role to play. We need to make noise about this. We need to expose people who are behind, who are trying to frustrate the patriotic effort of Aliko Dangote. Because if it can refine our crude oil in Nigeria, it means there's going to be a reduction in the interim, And of course, ultimately, it's stopping to importation of fuel.
Would you be amongst these Nigerians who would call or state it clearly that Mr. President has failed if at the end of maybe another 1 year we still don't see any headway with the petroleum industry, we don't see the reduction in the stealing of Nigeria's crude, we don't see any clarity with whether Nigeria is paying subsidy or not, we don't see any clarity with regards Dangote himself, would you be in front and say that Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has failed as Minister of Petroleum?
Yeah. Let me say this. I think we need to realize the fact that even the president is not sleeping now. The kind of onslaught against those who are stealing our petrol, you see that is on the rise. There are activities in that regard, okay? But I can assure you of one thing, that Mr. President won't sleep. Even the next 1 year, it's not only going to be me anyway, that things don't get much better than the way they are now. It is natural that Nigerians...
So will you tell him that he has failed?
Sure, I will call it, I want my voice.
All right.
I want my voice, definitely.
All right.
But I can assure you that in the next 1 year, I mean, we'll be happy.
How many people will be left in the next 1 year? If things continue at this rate, how many Nigerians will survive the next 1 year?
I don't know what you mean by I don't know what you mean by things continue this way.
Me.
Yes.
Yeah, in terms of how expensive the cost of living is, if there is no immediate intervention, there are people who right now cannot even afford one meal a day. They're struggling. Yeah. So if it continues like this for the next 1 year, I hope it doesn't for the in the interest of all of us, that things do get better. But
yeah, there's no way it will continue this way. Let's get that. I often ask, I say, okay, when media people, make their submissions, I ask some of them, okay, what do you think are the solutions in the immediate that the current government is not taking cognizance of? Let's look at this. Let's look at the agric industry now. Whether we like it or not, so many activities are going on there.
Right.
But there's no way you invest in agric today and tomorrow you want to reap.
Okay.
All right.
We of course will look forward to talking more about this, and again we'll hold you to your word and look at what the current situation is, or what the situation will be in the next 1 year. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning.
My pleasure.
All right, we're going to break. When we come back, we have our newspapers we'll be reviewing shortly, but let's share with you a recap on what's coming up next. Nigerians and federal government disagree over hashtag End Bad Governance protest is one of the conversations we've had this morning. And we've also looked at motorist commuters groan as fuel scarcity returns to major cities. And away from that, we did also talk about the security being beefed up following recent Boko Haram attacks in Borno State. But now let's share what's coming up next on Breakfast Central.
This morning, Kenneth Okonkwo dumps Labour Party as he knocks Peter Obi. The newspaper front pages will also bring in your way this morning. Major stories making headlines across Nigeria. And also, which way Nigeria? Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's take you through the newspapers this morning. The major stories making headlines across Nigeria. We're joined this morning by public affairs analyst Dr. John. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. It's good to be here this morning.
All right.
Yeah.
We kick off on the Punch newspapers this morning, and it should be on your screen in a second. Yes, it says, hardship protest, US, UK, Canada issue security alerts, traders fear looting. Foreign missions foresee violence as federal government and OB defer on protest sponsors. Fuel rises to 1,300 naira per litre as depots run dry. And it says, only NNPCL Limited can buy Dangote petrol, Ipman is saying. Interesting. SIM linkage, or SIM and NIN linkage, telcos begin mass disconnection. We can also find here, victim under pressure to drop police station rape case, says the family. LH Telecoms acquires majority stake in 9 Mobile. All right, and court orders $1 billion payment to Oceanic Bank ex-staff. These are major stories on the Punch this morning. Right next, let's go to the Vanguard newspapers.
And away from the Punch to the Vanguard newspaper, the big story, hardship. Police protest organizers dig in. There's another one, gay marriage approval. Anglicans threaten to break away from Church of England. And then there's not a lot of stories. Okay, there's another one. Abuja politicians behind banditry and killings in Benue. according to Governor earlier. Shortage fuel prices rise 21% to 850 naira per litre as marketers short stations. Let's begin the conversation regarding the police protests and how the police have given the guidelines for how the protest must be run. They said first that the curfew has to be at 4 p.m. Two, they need the names of the protest sponsors or, the protest leaders, names and contact details. What do you think about that?
Okay, I'm totally indifferent about whatever the police has said. I'm totally indifferent about what the government has said because the more we talk on this issue, the more we advertise our lack of knowledge. For about 3 years, I traveled from Ikorodu to Island using the ferries on Friday. And we've done this for about 2 years, until one day, as we were going, the waters became troubled, only for us to know that the guy that has been transporting us for over 2 years is so inexperienced. In the subject of leadership, you don't know how experienced your leader is until there's crisis in the community. And that's exactly what has played out in this situation. And often, there are many Nigerians that have burnt the bridge. I'm one of them. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. So if I am here, I should know what is good for my country. I know that what is good for my country at this moment is not destruction of property. I also know the fact that what is good for my country at this point in time is to have able-bodied men and women, intellectuals, who can hit the street and tell the government that what you are doing at this point is not how to run a government. I do understand all of this. And let me take you back to history. There's never been a protest in Nigeria, including the NSAS protest, that actually led to crisis. It is not the protest that leads to crisis. It is always the response to the protest. And I'm going to be very clear and blunt. If you read from Google, just a simple search this morning, you discover that the organization of the protest in the year 2020 was about the best anywhere in the world. And crisis did not break out until the government responded to it. So when you say, and philosophically, they say the matter is not the matter. The matter is how you respond to the matter. So if there's a subject of protest in the community as a result of hardship which nobody can deny, hardship that the government promised to fix, hardship that the people do not have any reason to be experiencing, then it borders on us as a people to continue to know that the first thing to do is to actually ask yourself a very basic question without emotion. Are we in the right state in the nation? And it's not a subject of what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did in the last 1 year. I keep telling the people, when you continue to boil the water, it gets to a point where it evaporates. And that's the point we get to. So if we have 30 years, a traditional ruler came out to say, oh, in the last 30 years, it's been warning the government that if we continue this thing like this, we are going to get to a point where the people will no longer be able to take it. So all of this are happening, and sometimes I just want to excuse myself because I do not want to unnecessarily hit up the polity, but it's also a truism that we must tell it to whosoever needs to hear that at this point in time, whatever will happen as a result of the protest will not be as a result of the protest. It will be the response of the government to the protest.
Which is very interesting. And so before we go to talking about petrol scarcity or anything else, also share your views on the 4 p.m., the 4 p.m. Curfew. The idea is to limit the possibilities of hoodlums and the likes, hijacking the protests and all of that. Do they have a point?
Okay, let me tell you that the simple thing to do, and I come from a police-populated family, and I know how experienced the Nigeria police force is. And I know when they want to work, I know how they can actually deliver. And I also know the fact that if not because majority of these people are forbidden by the act not to protest, they will be at the forefront. And let's start from that. Because the living standard of an average policeman today in Nigeria is nothing to write home about.
Absolutely.
And I tell you that if a constable, as small as that rank is, dies in my community in Ondo State today, his file needs to get to the IG before approval is given for his gratuity to be paid. And most often, these people, their wives get molested before they even get the gratuity. So we are talking about a communal problem that affects everybody. And the way the police should have responded to it, or the way I think
they should respond to it. And I think I mentioned the other day, I did a program of public leadership in the UK, and everything we were taught is about the UK police. Why is that? Because your police is the symbol of your community. So if police is coming out to say, oh, how to curb this thing is 4 p.m., and I say no. How to curb this is to ensure that the protesters are protected. Once you protect the protesters, you will discover that these hoodlums here and there that people are afraid of will not be able to perpetrate evil.
All right.
So my own concern is that give the protester protection and you have been able to protect your community.
Let's hear from Aloy calling this morning. Good morning, Aloy. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead with your comment.
Yeah, good morning. Just to make it...
Aloy, are you still there?
I want to respond to the...
Yeah, and of course, you know, it also sets, you know, a precedence. Good morning, go ahead.
For particulars of protesters.
Yes.
I want to say that it's true for particulars. It's go to INEC. But all the people that vote for and against, their particulars are with INEC.
Aloy, we would need to have you call back.
But I think I heard him say something like if they need details, they should go to INEC. I was trying to get the correlation, but unfortunately...
I was also saying, you know, that certain timelines for a protest, you know, or you know, curfews, and saying that protest should end by 4 p.m., everybody should go home because of the curfew, also sets a precedent, you know, that next time that there's a protest, they might say it ends at 12. The police might say, okay, wrap your protest between 7 and 9, you know, or you have only 20 minutes, you know, to do your protest and go home, which, you know, infringes on the right to protest to some extent.
The reality is that it has become very clear that the government does not know how to respond to this. And I listened to former President Olusegun Obasanjo speak in Kenya, and he said something that is very important. He said in Africa, our democratic practice in Africa shows that opposition is enmity. So when somebody is hitting the street, the first thing that comes across the government is that, oh, my enemy is coming. And the next thing they do is that they think about how to crush the enemy, not the situation. So most often, why government responds the way it responds is because opposition in Africa is enmity. And it doesn't matter whether you make sense at that point or not. So they are not looking at the situation, they are looking at the personality of an enemy in every act of opposition. And that's why they come to say, oh, we're going to limit this to 4 p.m. because our enemy is hitting the street. The truth is that what we have, and I keep telling people, is that there are 3 levels to criticism. Let's start from there. The first is to speak about the problem. The second level is to speak about the problem and provide the solution. The third level is to create a better version of what you dislike, which is what this government promised.
Okay.
You know, it was very easy for them to come out in 2012 to say, oh, we no go green. But the opportunity, nature has given them the opportunity, the universe has given them the opportunity now to actually create a better version of the government they disliked in 2012, and everybody does not know what to do.
All right. Kenneth is calling from Sokoto. Good morning, Kenneth. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My take on this matter is that my own view, I'm not in support of the protest that people are planning to take place on 1st of August. Because my reason is that things are hard. People want to go out on the street to destroy the common man thing. Whatever you are destroying, the same government will come back, steal money again, and repair those things.
All right.
Based on what former NNPP candidate that from Koso said, it baffles me during election time. The same common man, the same poor men that will be used in INEC, whatever, we will collect money and still change INEC results.
All right.
When we are doing it in 2023, have they forgotten?
Okay. Kenneth, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. He's highlighted how the common man is going through a challenging time. We need to get in as much as we can in this conversation. We've stayed on this protest conversation a little too long. Let's talk about fuel price. Okay. The front page of the Punch reads that fuel rises to 1,300 naira per litre as depot run dry.
I am sorry. I am going to go back to the issue of protest because there's another one coming now. When you talk about the protest, you can just highlight about 3 things that might lead to a protest. And I say, you know, when your alarm wakes you up in the morning and you snooze it, if care is not taken, you sleep past your time. I hope we will not snooze the protest, even when at the end of the day, I have agitated for conversation. Even if at the end of the day, this protest does not, if people don't get to the street, I hope we will not snooze it. If protest does not hold now, nobody hits the street. All of these things, I called one of the special advisors to the president, I think on, I can't remember his office, and I told him that, see, if 2 people slap themselves in petrol queue alone, that can lead to breakdown of order. So we are actually addressing protest today. Everybody is talking about protest, but this is another banger hitting everybody. We are yet to recover from the hardship in the community, and somehow we are getting to know that, oh, fuel subsidy is gone. We are getting to know that government has through the back door reintroduced fuel subsidy. We are getting to know that fuel price is hitting above 1,000 naira. All of these things are the problem that the government must use this opportunity to tackle. And what are we saying? If your refineries do not work for 30 years, it is not something that anybody should hit the street to remind you. And when you came on board, you said, oh, we were going to fix it. I was one of those people who were speaking of you for people to give you an opportunity until you came on here to say nobody should pity you. I mean the president. Unfortunately, you have surrounded yourself with 36 state governors who have taken more money than they have ever taken. And instead of laundering your reputation by providing the dividend of democracy for the people, these people take money. See, there's a state in the Southwest. Before the former governor left, they were taking 5 billion naira. Now they are taking 13 billion naira. And there has never been a single change between the man that is there now and the man that was there in terms of infrastructure, in terms of youth engagement, in terms of provision of basic amenity, in terms of even doing for the people the basic things that they cannot do for themselves. So we are in a situation in the country where, oh, the president is making economic policy, fantastic economic policy. But my problem with the economic policy is that experiences in the last 1 year have shown that it's just trial by error. When they wanted to work on the dollar, they started giving money to BDC, Bureau de Change. But they stopped at a point. Now they have returned. It shows that maybe they don't have a clear idea of what to be done. But let's even leave that. But what are the state governors doing at their own level?
They are appealing with Nigerians to...
It is sad. And what are those 3 areas that I was expecting that any serious-minded government will invest in to actually reduce the impact of what we have?
Before you mention what these 3 areas are, let's hear from Usman calling from Abuja. Good morning, Usman. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Usman. It's my name. I have a little contribution.
Thank you for calling. Please go ahead. Can you please go ahead? We can hear you.
Yes. In as much as the protest will be, Nigerians will protest, in as much as they are not going to put damages to our economy. Hello?
Go ahead, Usman.
Go ahead, we can hear you. Go ahead.
In as much as there's not going to be, what you call it, destruction, I think a peaceful protest will send a clear signal to the government.
All right. All right, Usman, thanks for your thoughts.
I was trying to make a point.
So the 3 areas you think that any serious government should have focused on?
As urgently as possible.
All right.
Number 1 is agriculture.
Okay.
Now you hit the street, you drive past in the street, and people are asking you, it has moved from give me money to buy me anything I can eat. The reality has even hit the street that people are stopping you before to say, oh, Baba, give me money. Now it's Baba, don't give me money. What happens to our money? It means that whatever you give them now, the value of it has gone down. So they just want you to buy food. So we must have a deliberate investment in agriculture. And I've spoken about housing again and again. People no longer have where to put their head. Why? Why is that? It's not just because of the fact that we have housing deficit in Nigeria. It's also the fact that politicians have been able to put in their stolen money into that sector. And what do I mean? I mean that ordinary housing a housing unit that should go for 21 million is now 80 million. Why? Because there's so much money in the pocket of some people that they just want to hide by buying houses all over the community. And by extension, you cannot get a decent accommodation within the limit of your salary. And I keep saying it, that housing is one very good thing that government must have a deliberate investment, not just in building, but in regulating. Now they are talking about paying per month. You know, the former Lagos State government governor did that, and it didn't work. And I said, no, the National Assembly should forget about monthly payment. What we should have is a regulation that says that if I live in Okukumaiko, I shouldn't pay more than 1.2 million per annum. If I live in Surulere, I shouldn't pay more than 1.5 million. But government can only do that if government itself has investment. Before government will be able to do that, it means that in Ikorodu, government has about 2,000 units of flat. Then you use that as regulation. This thing works. And I thank God we have tried it in 1970. Is it 1976 or 1977? Yeah. And this thing works.
All right. All right, we need to wrap up here. Thank you very much, John, for your passion. And for your love for Nigeria.
The truth is that for some of us, I say it again, that
there's no other place.
So we must be deliberate about it.
All right. But I do want us to quickly, please, before we wrap up, let's talk about this conversation, because I don't think that it's gotten the publicity that it deserves. Still on the front page of The Punch, the bottom story, victim under pressure to drop police station rape case family. We're hoping that we can reach out to the family to come and speak about it. Now, it was a story of a young girl who went to the police to report about her stolen phone. And, you know, when she went to report her stolen phone, the door was shut and she was allegedly raped. Now, there have been conversations about this, many people calling the police and asking the police to reveal the face of the perpetrator of this act to ensure that he be brought to book. But now, the update we're seeing is that the victim is under pressure to drop the police station rape case.
Yes, and I listened to the state PPRO, Hudei, who was trying to say, oh, the state government, the state command is investigating and doing all things possible. And I say that in corporate communication, when a matter becomes public, the process should also be made public. This is one of the reasons why people lose hope in their government and lose faith in the process of governance. So you know that this is a serious matter. The accusation got public outrage. The process of prosecution must also get the people informed. That means that you are not going to do the prosecution under the table. So that at the end of the day, there will not be accusation of any kind of cover-up. And I'm so sad this morning that I'm reading this from the family. And it's a call on the Lagos State Police Command to ensure that the people are aware of the real situation. It's not just it's beyond just showing the face of the perpetrator. It is the fact that every other process that is involved in the prosecution must be made public.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Dotun Ojo. It's always a pleasure to have you. More stories to be looked at this morning, but this time around, what exactly is going on with the Labour Party? And why has Kenneth Okonkwo decided to leave? That's the conversation we're having next.
Welcome back. Now let's bring you a correspondent who's out on the streets monitoring the petrol scarcity here in Lagos. Ni, good morning. Kindly confirm where you are and what the situation is like over there.
Good morning, Osalge. Good morning, Olive. So I'm right here at Ogba, a part of Lagos, and I'd just like to start my story from, this tricycle just obstructed my view, but okay, good, it's moving away. Just as you can see behind me there, a red car grounded to a halt because of lack of petrol. Now, this scenery you can see right here are just one of the very many we have seen so far on the street here at Ogba Ifako. Now, let me give you an example or give you a view of what exactly is experienced here. This is College Road, is one of the longest stretch around the suburb area, and it houses about 6 to 7 fueling stations across this long stretch. Just right where we are right now, we have a government-owned NNPC fuel stations on my right-hand side, which opened at around 8:10 a.m. this morning, of which the people on the queue here had been there since 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. In fact, the first person who bought on this queue this morning is Ebun-Olu, an Uber driver who had been there since 4 a.m. in the morning. And on the right-hand side, if you look to my right-hand side, that's an independent marketer. They opened about 20 minutes after these ones also opened. If you see the queue Just as you can see on your video, on your shot there, it's quite long, it's massive. The people are agitated, the people are frustrated. They are wondering why they have to go through this again. Now, while the authorities have come out to say that this is because of itches in distribution operations of vessels, Nigerians are really not having it, and they are worried that these might linger on. And it's also raising a lot of concern just few days to the planned protest. Just right in front of the camera here, you can see a LASMA officer trying to control the traffic, because this has really impeded the traffic flow on this axis of the road.
All right. Nee, thank you very much for bringing us that update. As quickly as possible, how much is fuel going for in that filling station? And do you have an idea of the rates in other filling stations as well?
Yeah, so from what we could get from the NNPC, government-owned petrol station here, they're selling about 568 naira per litre. But for the independent marketers there, some people said they bought at around 650 yesterday, but are worried it might go as high as 850 naira as of this morning. They just started selling, so we've not been able to confirm that. We're on this side of the road. Also, the black marketers are using the opportunity to also go through their trade, selling as high as 1,200 naira to 1,500 naira per litre. These are the concerns.
Thank you so much for bringing the update. And yes, they've just opened, like you said, and as we proceed with subsequent shows, we'll be bringing regular updates regarding fuel scarcity. But moving away from that conversation, popular Nollywood actor, a spokesperson for the Labour Party presidential campaign organization, Kenneth Okonkwo, has left the party. Kenneth Okonkwo has accused the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi of lacking leadership skills and vision for Nigeria. In a statement made available online, Okonkwo described Obi's leadership style as clueless and questioned his ability to tackle the country's pressing problems. Okonkwo also took aim at Obi's supporters, saying they are misled and will soon realize their mistake.
Now, the criticism comes as talks about the 2027 presidential election are already underway, in which Obi is expected to be a strong contender. We have joining us this morning the spokesperson, Labour Party, Ife Salako. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, as always.
Great to have you. It seems Kenneth Okonkwo is the latest of the members who have left the Labour Party. I remember that I think one of the members of the National Assembly left recently. Harrison Gwamishu, I think, also left recently as well. What is going on with the party, and should members of the party be worried that the sink is shipping? The ship is sinking.
Yeah. So it's all internal party problems. The Labour Party is at the toddler stage now. So there is a lot of problem, going around. There's a lot of throwing of tantrums here and there, as you will find, at the stage at which the party is right now. People came to the party. A lot of people came to the party with expectations and personal interests, and being there and seeing that it is not the same expectations that they came with to the party. So it is natural for them to just move and go to where they would find the right kind of arrangement that they believe in. And this goes to say that from what Okonkwo said, the accusation against Peter Obi, it is that is not forcing, that Peter Obi is not forcing his own personal interest on the party.
He's accusing him of lacking leadership and being able to take the reins.
Lacking leadership in what? Is he the chairman of the party? Is Peter Obi the chairman of the party?
I remember seeing an interview he granted about a month ago where he did say that there's some also in some situations, all he needed to do was make a strong statement to be able to, curl certain issues.
You see, when we talk about all of these things, because we are used to a particular pattern that some people have been doing this thing in the past, does not mean it is right.
Do you think that the position that Kenneth Okonkwo shares about how Peter Obi has led the party is a popular standpoint?
Peter Obi is not the chair. Let's get this thing clearly. What I am here to make Nigerians know this morning is that a candidate in a party that you run, under the flagship of the party does not make you the leader of the party.
But you do know that a number of people threw their support for the Labour Party because of Peter Obi being the presidential candidate for the Labour Party.
Yes.
You know that he's a very strong
I became a Labour Party member because of Peter
So
Obi.
it was mainly Peter Obi. Do you agree that in some cases it was more about Peter Obi and less about the Labour Party?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so in that case, do you think that his style of leadership is one that has been accepted, or do you think that the position that Kenneth Okonkwo has taken is one that is popular amongst members of the party and the supporters of the party?
It is very popular amongst the members of the party. It is popular, amongst other political parties. People want, people that are, known in the party, that are popular in the party, to take the mantle of the party and, control the internal affairs of the party. But I stand here to say that it is not in any way legitimate of you, a candidate that ran on the platform of the party, to determine what happened, to solely determine what happens in the party. If you choose to allow the party run the way the party wants to run the party, the best way they could run it, and not interfere, it is not, it is in your rights to do that.
Quickly, we need to go. There were some irregularities that were mentioned with the Labour Party convention. There were expectations that Peter Obi will speak, against those irregularities, but he stayed silent. So quickly respond to the criticism concerning that, and then also, are they still? I remember Peter Obi put out a statement this morning concerning Kenneth Okonkwo.
Yes.
Are they still friends?
Oh, from what Peter Obi wrote about him, apparently he's still very much in good relationship with him.
Well, what about the convention? Quickly,
the convention, it is the fact that we would always have problems with party politics, and I can't say that this convention is is what would define Labour Party.
All right.
We are going through a process, and we'll get there.
Ifya, we'll certainly love you to join us again. There's still many areas we need to look at, but we've run out of time. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And that does it for us this morning on Breakfast Central. We'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you for your time with us. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogbon. See you tomorrow.